Fala, gurizada! Bora tomar um cafezinho? Para quem não sabe, eu sou o David, sou investidor de criptomoedas. Se tu é novo no canal, seja muito bem-vindo. Se inscreva, deixa esse like, bora fortalecer a família do café. Gurizada, hoje nós vamos estudar Brics. Achei um conteúdo muito interessante na Fundação Getúlio Vargas para te entender a digitalização que esses países estão fazendo. Então isso aqui é um conteúdo muito importante para te entender. A parada está acontecendo. Esse foi dentro do, para quem não sabe, a Fundação Getúlio Vargas, eu não tô ganhando nada deles, mas o conteúdo deles é muito bom, cara. Falando de criptomoedas e de digitalização. Te prepara aí, o vídeo é um pouco longo, eu vou ajeitar a velocidade dele e nós vamos estudar isso aí ao vivo. Cara, eu tentei fazer uma live, mas é muito chato de ficar editando aquele troço lá, cara. Eu prefiro gravar o vídeo e depois que o vídeo solta, eu ativo o chat e fico conversando com vocês, tá? Às vezes vocês podem me perguntar alguma coisa, mas é um vídeo. Porque, cara, a opção de live é muito chata. De ficar ali, é muito detalhezinho. O vídeo eu gravo aqui no gravador, eu não consigo nem compartilhar minha tela, eu tentei usar um aplicativo, só que daí é muita opção que eu tenho que habilitar para poder compartilhar a tela na live, pelo menos foi o que eu consegui entender. Então eu fico aqui no método tradicional do cafezinho, te ajeita na cadeira e vamos estudar, tá? Que é o seguinte, olha o vídeo que eu achei. O webinário tá tudo em inglês, cara, saiu na Fundação Getúlio Vargas. Eu vou... Só 25 curtidas e olha o tempo que foi transmitido isso aqui. Há um ano atrás. A digitalização e a transformação dos cybercircuitos nos países do Brics, tá? Então vamos estudar e presta atenção, cara. Isso aqui foi um vídeo de um ano e parece que eles estão falando tudo como se fosse agora. Deixa eu ajeitar aqui. Deixa eu ver a velocidade. Tá rápido. Eu vou botar um pouco mais rápido, cara, senão vai demorar muito isso aqui. É 1 hora e pouca de vídeo e vamos ver as melhores partes. Vamos estudar, bora no cafezinho play. Cara, não tem como eu deixar rodando, que senão eu posso tomar strike do YouTube. Eu tenho que fazer tipo uma análise junto e comentando. E outra, se tu quer ficar só assistindo o vídeo, entra aqui na página deles e vê, cara. Na verdade, eu tento estudar junto com vocês aqui e fazer uma análise em cima, né? Bora pro vídeo, vamos ver o que eles falaram.
Good morning.
Opa.
Good morning. Good morning.
Eu quero ver o que aparece escrito ali, gurizada.
Good morning to everyone and welcome to yet another Cyber Brics webinar organized and hosted by FGV. Before we start, let me just share the usual disclaimer. Of course, all the distinguished guests we will have today are participating willingly. They know that the webinar will be recorded and can be published, and they are also expressing only their personal opinion. It, of course, does not represent any official position by FGV. My name is Luca Belli. I'm professor at FGV Law School. I had
professor de faculdade de Direito na Fundação Getúlio Vargas.
And I also having now the honor of heading the Center for Technology and Society at FGV. Today, with us, we will have a great selection of special guests together with our Cyber Brics fellows exploring digital transformation and cybersecurity issues in the Brics countries. So, as usual, our main objective is to delve into these very key topics and issues, but from a Brics perspective, which is usually not the traditional perspective from which these all-important issues are tackled.
É professor de direito, tá? Falando da cibersegurança e a transformação digital nesses países. Ah, mas o que isso tem a ver com cripto, cara? Leis? Tu acha que a regulamentação surgiu do nada? Do nada. Foi os políticos que inventaram. Cara, tem muita gente por trás envolvida nisso aí, cara. 1 ano atrás ele já estava falando isso aqui, ó. Lucas Belli, PhD, professor na Fundação Getúlio Vargas e formado em Direito. Vamos ver o trabalho dele.
It is increasingly interesting and relevant, not only for Brics countries, but globally. we will have today with us an incredible selection of stars of digital transformation and cybersecurity at the BRICS level. We start with Bruno Ramos, that is the director of the Americas Regional Office of the International Telecommunication Union. Then following, of course, the BRICS order that we usually follow, we will have Paul Murphy representing Huawei. He is senior cybersecurity advisor for the Chinese giant. Then we will have Lucienne Abrams. Lucy, she is one of the most acknowledged academics in terms of digital transformation studies, and she is the director of the Learning, Information, Networking Knowledge Center at Wits University, South Africa. And then last but not least, of course, we will have our old friend Cesar Nile, Professor Cesar Nile. He is also not only a professor, but also a commissioner at the Information Regulator of South Africa. Today, we are going to explore some of the technological aspects, but of course also the strategic and policy and politics of digital transformation. These
política e transformação digital
acronyms that are loved by almost all governments as a good, maybe marketing move to brand their digital transformation strategy. And they are frequently mixed in the ambitions and sometimes obsessions of countries are going to be debated today, but also some other more policy-oriented topics that we have also started to explore in our last conference that we organized only 2 months ago on the digital, on how the state, the government, public services are going to be updated, implemented, digitized.
Como os governos dos países serão atualizados, implementados e digitalizados. O BRICS já estava planejado, tudo isso aí. Uma informação ali, só 25 curtidas e muito pouca visualização, e a parada está acontecendo. Ninguém sabe. Já estava, ó, tempos programado, hein, gurizada? Vamos estudar.
In order to, of course, make them, on the one hand, more efficient, on the other hand, also more transparent, accountable, and user-friendly. We've started exploring this in the HIT conference that we had in March that will result in a book at the end of the year. Then we are also currently exploring the BRICS strategies for digital transformation that will result.
Estamos transformando o BRICS para a transformação digital, o BRICS.
Also in a volume next year on digital transformation in BRICS. And today's workshop is key, is essential also to feed this work on exploration and the understanding of digital strategies for digital transformation in the BRICS countries. It will be also a complement of this first main milestone that we have published only a couple of months ago, this book on cybersecurity regulations in the BRICS countries, as cybersecurity of course, is an essential side of digital transformation, digitizing everything, the massive...
Digitalizando tudo.
And widespread use of ICTs may be extremely interesting, but also may create a wide range of vulnerabilities. And cybersecurity policies and regulations are key in order to face and be prepared to face these vulnerabilities. The last part of this first book we published directed towards an interesting finding that emerged in the first phase of the project, which is that also digital policies, cybersecurity policies, and increasing digital transformation policies are part of a wider vision of digital sovereignty, of different visions that the BRICS countries are developing. We have also just closed a call for papers that resulted in a good number of very interesting submissions that will be conveyed into this other work that we are...
15 de fevereiro de 2021 já estava programado tudo.
Together with Professor Min Jiang from the University of Charlotte, and that is also a visiting professor of cyberbits, that will also be released soon. All in all the publications will be, of course, always accessible, together with also the recording of our webinar on our website. So I strongly suggest to check our website. It is already, after 3 years, a considerable number of interesting resources on digital policies. And this is the last piece of advertisement. We will also release soon this book on digital policies in Brazil.
No Brasil, ele
organizou. And
políticas digitais no Brasil.
Regulations that I had the pleasure to organize with my old friend Bruno Ramos, that I would invite to be the first speaker and to offer indeed the tense of today with an overview from his very good position in order to understand how the different countries are shaping their digital policies and digital transformation strategies within the international telecommunications union. Thank you very much, Bruno, for being with us today. It's a great pleasure. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luca. Are you hearing me well? Good. So, first of all, I'd like just to thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here with you and other panelists and try to share a little
pela criação de leis digitais aqui no Brasil, tá? Bruno Ramos e o Luca Belli, no bloco Brics. Vamos ver o que eles vão falar, cara. Tá interessante esse vídeo aí.
The experience of the International Telecommunication Union in digital transformation, mainly in the digital transformation and the days that we are facing and planning the future. So first of all, I will take only 8 minutes, and I'll try to give some. I also like to say in the beginning what I thought to tell you. So I will start with some overview about the work of the ITU in Americas, because I am the regional director for the Americas, and after that I will talk a little bit about the days that we are facing, mainly with the pandemic of COVID, and it's a good time to reflect about the future and what our sector, the information and communication technologies, can help people and help the countries in this in planning the future about this specific topics. And for sure, I will enter a little bit about the cybersecurity aspects in these days. So. The ITU is the International Telecommunication Union, is a specialized agency of the UN to the ICTs, information and communication technologies. So we work as a standardization body where the members of the ITU, not only the member state, not only the countries, but also we have more than 700 private members. So they come together just to discuss the standards of the ICT sector in order to allow and make some recommendations to allow the countries in implementing and planning the future. A little bit about the ITU in Americas. And this month, the last month in April, final part of April, we had a very important meeting in the region just to think about the regional priorities for the countries in Americas, because we will have a development conference of the ITU. Probably it's an upcoming conference. We are discussing if we are going to have the conference this year or the next year. But it's important to say that the Americas countries, the members of the ITU, defined 4 priorities for the next 4 years.
Definirão 4 propriedades nos próximos 4 anos. Vamos ver.
The first one, deployment of modern, resilient, secure, and sustainable telecommunication ICT infrastructure. So it's important. So it's very clear to us that all the members are thinking about infrastructure. And in the infrastructure sector, so we have secure and sustainable telecommunication ICT infrastructure. So it is the first priority for the next 4 years in Americas, and where one of the countries of the BRICS are included, that is Brazil, in the same priority. The second priority is enhancement and expansion of digital literacy, digital skills, and digital inclusion programs, especially among vulnerable populations.
Digital, so, entre populações vulneráveis. Cara, tá tudo planejado, velho. Tu tá vendo? Foi tudo milimetricamente arquitetado.
After infrastructure, we need to teach. We need to include people by education. So digital literacy is very important for the countries. And the third one, effective support for the digital transformation and innovation systems through scalable, founded, and sustainable connectivity projects. So they are saying to us that we need to work with some kind of practical programs, practical projects to effective support the digital transformation, not only studying, but helping the countries with projects. And the number 4 is development of enabled policy and regulatory environments to connect the unconnected through accessible and affordable telecommunication ICTs. So in this 4th one, the countries are saying that enabling policy and regulatory environments are very important to support the transformation. Being one of the UN agencies, it's important to say also that in this contemporary world, that the forms of social and cultural interactions and also the economic development, so we are changing very, very quickly by the evolution of ICTs. So these new technologies are not only allowing us to exchange the information, but also they are changing the way that people is connected, and we need to think also about those who still remain disconnected. And as I was saying, being an UN agency, we need to include in this 4 regional priorities, but also the sustainable development goals. I think that putting in the planning of all countries, all societies, that we need to reach the 2030 agenda of the UN.
Agenda 2030. tu tá vendo, tá encaixando tudo. Ele tá falando que criaram leis por causa da atualização cibernética, né? Leis contra crimes cibernéticos, tem que ter lei, cara. Porque sim, vai ser implementado, cara, a digitalização nos países do BRICS. E o Brasil foi responsável por estar fazendo isso. Bom, que coisa importante. E, cara, parece assim que ele tá falando da blockchain. Detalhes, ele falou até os 4 elementos que eles estão implantando. Tu tá vendo como faz sentido isso aqui? Em nenhum momento ele focou no projeto que a gente fala. Mas tu começa a ver ali eu tô vendo com vocês aqui e me faz similar com a blockchain, com tudo isso aí que tá acontecendo, que a gente estuda no cafezinho, cara. Dos BRICS e a exclusão do dólar. Foi tudo planejado, gurizada.
That the countries signed in 2015 for the next 15 years.
Assinaram em 2015.
Remaining
os próximos 15
10
anos.
years, we need to think, and including in the priorities of infrastructure, digital development, projects, and also innovative solutions, we need to think how we are going to reach the sustainable development goals. Elimination of hunger, achievement of health, quality education, gender equality, availability of drinking water and basic sanitation, provision of clean, accessible energy, so decent work, existence of industries and the innovation infrastructure, reducing inequalities, construction of smart and sustainable cities, search of responsible consumption and production, trying to work on global climate change and protect the water life and terrestrial life. And for sure, search of peace. We need to add these things.
O plano é muito bonito, né? Mas na prática nunca é assim, né? Mas vamos ver.
For the 4 priorities. Finishing my speech, so as I said, I'd like just to talk about the first priority, about reliable and secure infrastructure. In this kind of point, we enter cybersecurity. To inform you that the ITU has the cybersecurity index, so we are working on the last one that we're going to publish this year. And the Global Cybersecurity Index is a reliable benchmark and measure the countries committed to cybersec. We have 5 pillars in this Global Cybersecurity Index: legal measures, technical measures, organizational measures, capacity building, and cooperation. So on this last one, cooperation, and this is the final part, is it's very important to highlight the importance of this cooperation with FGV, Luca. So we are very proud to have FGV as a key partner of us, working in the development of new ideas for the future, trying to bring what the members of the ITU think and try to help the organization of the countries for these changes that we are facing. To finish, just to say that in the BRICS, in the last cybersecurity index, we have good positions in the index. I will not say here, but Russia, in this order, Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil are positioned. So we are here just to help also the members of the BRICS in order to help them in evolving in the index with the work that we are doing. Luca, that's it. Thank you so much for the invitation again, and I'm here to any questions if it appears in the chat. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. And yeah, also thank you for reminding me that all the participants that are following us through YouTube can use the YouTube chat to add questions, and then we will convey them to speakers toward the end when we'll open the floor for a Q&A. Thank you very much for highlighting these initial points, Bruno. It's always good to have your insight and vision. And also, I can also stress that since the very beginning, when we were conceiving this CyberBRICS project, you also provided us with very important insights, and it's always interesting to have your ideas. And we will, of course, keep on enhancing our cooperation also with further projects on digital transformations, which we are always scheming about. So now to pass through to the next speaker, Paul Murphy. He is senior cybersecurity advisor for Huawei. Huawei, Chinese tech giant, which has found itself as a victim of its own success in a sort of digital Cold War over the past years. It has had tremendous success in development of its project. He is a key partner of many governments, and Mr. Paul Murphy is today with us to speak a little bit about what is this private sector vision of digital transformation and how Huawei is enabling it through various technologies, projects, and visions. Thank you very much, Con, for being with us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Luca, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you also for the kind invitation
to participate today alongside your other guests. I'm going to share my screen. I have a short, a couple of slides which hopefully will guide me through this conversation. If you can see it okay, or if you can't see it, maybe tell me, but hopefully you can. So yeah, I'm Colin Murphy, and I work with the Global Cybersecurity and Privacy Office in Huawei. And that means essentially we set two things. We set the policies internally and ensure those they get executed around the world in the various business lines. And we also assist in terms of the cybersecurity solutions that form part of our customers' requirements, such that cybersecurity is upfront and center in those.
Essa empresa aqui, se eu não me engano, cara, uma vez, não sei se eles estão ainda, era com a Claro. Tu te lembra daqueles aparelhinhos que tu conectava no computador e tu tinha internet, que era 3G, na época era uma febre aquilo, eu tive aquilo. Era essa empresa aqui que era responsável, tá? Pelo símbolo ali, eu me lembrei. Vamos ver o que ele vai dizer.
Programs. So rather than go into some of those digital transformation projects, I'm going to talk a little bit about security and cybersecurity specifically. And as you know, and I think you mentioned, Luca, when it comes to cybersecurity, there's no lack of focus and attention around the world on Huawei. And actually, we think that's a good thing in a sense, because it keeps us on our toes to this very important issue, and it keeps it very much as the top priority within the business. But in the context of digital transformation, and when we have these kinds of opportunities, we have to be alive to the to essentially make us feel comfortable when we step onto that plane.
Right.
We haven't quite got there with ICT. And I mean, we hear a lot about 5G and Huawei's up front and center, and we hear accusations around the world about cybersecurity. But, you know, really, when you think about aviation, there's a number of players. There's a shared responsibility. There are the regulators, of course, the policymakers and the regulators. We have manufacturers, Huawei's one in ICT space, and we have a whole lot of other players and stakeholders. And it's all of those, that community working together to essentially make us feel comfortable when we step onto that plane, you know, and we have the same challenge here. So in terms of the digital transformation that's underway and will accelerate, the opportunities are clear. We heard already, Luca mentioned smart cities. We heard Luca talk about energy and sustainable, clean energy, healthcare, education. And when we think of things in terms of manufacturing and how that's been, changes are underway. And again, the automotive industry in terms of autonomous driving and so on, all of these things have marvelous opportunities, but on the right-hand side here, you can see there's serious work that we have to do alongside that. And that's in the context of the fact that whether we like it or not, all hope is not lost. And that's absolutely our position in Huawei. There is. So that's our role. That's our role in this. We've one role to play. We take that role very seriously as a manufacturer. We, for example, have, where I work in Brussels, have a network of transparency centers around the world where we encourage these kinds of conversations. We invite people to discuss, to collaborate, to cooperate, and to expand their ecosystems and learn. And of course, if anybody ever someday wants to come visit us in Brussels, or indeed in China, we have a center opening actually in June. Stop there. I think that was 9 minutes. But of course, as questions arise, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Colm. And indeed, I'm sure there will be questions. I would like just to pack them all to when we will open for our debate. And it's very interesting what you were saying, the various dimensions, the need for cooperation. But also, on the one hand, it highlights the very ample margin for incredible business opportunities for those who are developing these ICTs. On the other hand, the enormous need for very well-conceived strategies from governments in order to reap the benefits of digital transformation, and if not avoid, at least to mitigate the risks. And on this latter point, I think it's very good. Actually, it's really excellent to have today with us Lucy Abrams, because she has been working on digital transformation from years, and she is one of the leading scholars on digital transformation studies at the University of Wits in South Africa. And it's very interesting to have her vision today for us on how this process of digital transformation is taking place, how countries, BRICS,
a community. So for today, I wanted to cover more, but I thought it might be better to cover less. And so I'm going to focus on talking about fintech.
Fintech.
I have a similar overarching perspective to Bruno's perspective, namely that the economic and social innovation that all our countries seek is built on a number of legs.
Cara, o que deu aqui? Tela inteira. Econômico-social, 2021 a 2030. Vamos ver o que ela vai falar. Ela vai falar de economia, gurizada. Então vamos prestar atenção.
Play. The infrastructure leg where, of course, certain forms of cybersecurity are very important. The human resource leg, where while we concentrate on innovation, usage skills, innovation skills, and cybersecurity skills are all equally important. Then, of course, the applications without which the infrastructure would be meaningless. And finally, the digital leadership environment where policy and regulation, which policy and regulation is part of. And I will talk a little bit about that. So fintech is interesting because it cuts across everything. Like ICT or digital technologies, fintech is also cross-cutting to the economy, many different parts of the economy. So fintech is the foundation in many cases for this transition to smart cities and smart villages. And we just to recall that when we talk about trust, creating trust as a very important aspect of the world, of a cybersecure world, we're talking about at least confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. So let's just take a quick look at fintech in the BRICS countries and how very quickly it's advancing. In 2017, we see that the leading market was China, followed by India, the UK, Brazil, Australia, and South Africa, not lagging too far behind, with average adoption of fintech in South Africa higher than average global adoption. And if we look at the types of fintech that our BRICS countries are engaged with, the BRICS countries are actually leading across the board, perhaps because their banking and financial systems leave a lot of space, leave a lot of room for the emergence of these new fintech opportunities. But if we look across money transfer, China, India, Brazil, financial planning, China, Brazil, India, savings and investments, China, India, Brazil, borrowing, China, India, Brazil, insurance, India, China, South Africa. So really powerful presence in the fintech market. And by 2019, just 2 years later, the BRICS countries ranked number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 16 across 27 countries, where I think it was Brazil was the lowest percentage, and that was around 64%. So if we look at consumer fintech adoption, this is on the demand side. There's significant demand to meet that supply. 20, 30 years ago in South Africa, and I'm sure this was the case elsewhere, there were many questions about whether there was really any need for mobile technology, for mobile voice, for mobile data. And people kept saying, really? We're going to have, such high bandwidth infrastructure, who's going to use it? And of course, nowadays, nobody asks those questions because there is just more and more demand. Demand is growing for these highly innovative products and services. So, all our countries...
Olha o que está aqui. Blockchain. Tem plano, gurizada. Tudo isso aqui está se enquadrando, está acontecendo.
Do not only have digital strategies or digital transformation strategies or digital economy strategies, they also are focused on building smart cities and smart villages. So while we think of the range of possible fintech solutions and how they slot into smart cities, smart cities can, of course, be highly exclusive and can tend to exclude low-income communities, poor-income communities, and marginalized groups. But we see a big focus on smart villages, not only in South Africa, but in fact across a number of African countries, and I'll refer to that in a moment. I just want to move that's a better view.
Mobile, money and e-wallets. Carteiras digitais por celular. Cara, o bagulho chega a ser cômico, cara. Tudo que a gente estuda, eles já estavam, tempão já planejado. Vamos ver, coisa.
Right.
Intrigante
so,
esse vídeo.
Amongst the favored, the more popular uses of fintech is fintech used by small and medium enterprises, and in a few African countries by savings and credit cooperative societies. So these savings and credit cooperative societies, they call them different names in different countries. So in South Africa, for example, we've had this name, stokvel, which is an Afrikaans word, and it simply means that groups of people get together and they save together. And these stokvels really saw people through, periods of great difficulty prior to democracy in South Africa, where a large proportion of the South African population did not have access to banks and savings opportunities. And so these savings and credit societies...
A África tinha muita dificuldade de acesso aos bancos, daí eles faziam aquilo ali que ela falou, um grupo se reunia e economizavam juntos.
Became very popular, and some of them have large numbers of members, and saving millions or hundreds of thousands of rand. And they, like others, are targets for phishing, for ransom, for social media attacks, and so on. And of course, even though South Africa is the only country whose name appears in the BRICS, we can't, just talk about South Africa, because we are all, with fintech and any financial services, we're all connected. So,
pessoal, vem. Pessoal, vou mostrar uma pessoa aqui, ligeirinho para vocês. Vem cá. Ô, Davi, dá oi lá, ó. Dá oi pro pessoal. Esse aqui é o meu cunhado, acredites ou não, pessoal. Veio passar aqui o primeiro do ano comigo. Daí ele fica me chamando lá no quarto. Faz joinha aí, Davi. Aí faz o joinha, cara. Dá oi. Deixa o David aqui estudar, tá? Vai lá. Vocês conheceram o Davi, meu cunhado. Vou continuar aqui, bora pro estudo.
South Africa's connection to Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, trade and so on. But also China. I mean, China has a very large presence, and so does India. Very large presence on the African continent. So in that sense, the BRICS countries are really connected to Africa. One of the pieces of research, there's a company called Seriano, and they remarked on this huge increase in unsecured connections across the African continent when it comes to fintech. But despite all these challenges, so kind of starting from the challenge and then going to the pursuit of a digital economy, an African digital economy, and an African digital economy that is integrated into the global economy, because of course that is not currently, Africa is not as strongly integrated into the digital economy, the global digital economy, as it could be. What this means is that while we need to take care, while we need law and regulation, we also need policy and regulatory frameworks that enable rather than limit this fintech evolution. Sadly, the laws in many African countries are very recent. Well, having said that, you could say, yes, but the EU GDPR is also relatively recent. Uganda introduced its first data protection law around 2019. The South African information regulator was appointed in December 2016. I'm sure Sizwe will tell you more about that. So South Africa has only had a period of 4 or so years. And in fact, on the POPI page, on the information regulator page, we have 48 days to be compliant with the legislation. And we don't have a cybersecurity law. So the cybersecurity draft law is awaiting signature. And I'm getting to the last, second but last point. What's really crucial in the regulatory environment, once that cybersecurity legislation is established, and I'm keen to hear the information regulator's view, is this trend to future-oriented regulation, light touch, principles-based, risk-weighted regulation.
Tu tem dúvida que isso aqui não vai acontecer ainda? Tudo planejado, desde a economia e segurança. O BRICS vai usar. Não só através de notícias, tu tá vendo pessoas que são ligadas ao BRICS falando disso. Tu tá vendo um seminário com os criadores de leis cibernéticas do BRICS. E agora ela tá falando da economia do BRICS digital.
Other than rule-driven approaches. Where we engage in the type of collaborative regulation, we get together in regulatory sandboxes, we open the discussion to stakeholders, and that tends to lead to perhaps less hostile standoffs. And of course, finally, the importance of secure by design applications. So I have a few more points to make, but I think I should pause there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for this really excellent overview. And I really like the fact that all the presentations are building and intertwining on each other.
Convicto, a parada vai acontecer. No BRICS ali eles vão falar mais os termos de leis, eu acho. Mas igual, eu achei muito interessante, em nenhum momento eles citam o nosso projeto, mas tu sabe quem está por trás disso na parte econômica. É tudo esquematizado, tudo planejado, foi tudo milimetricamente arquitetado. Então, cara, convicto. E muito poucas pessoas dão bola para isso. Aqui, ó, 25 curtidas, 420 visualizações, isso foi postado 1 ano atrás. Eu tô vendo o vídeo agora, só pra gente ter uma noção, cara. Porque eu tô interessado no assunto. E a coisa vai acontecer. Não tem mais volta. Eles estão... Isso aqui foi tudo planejado, cara, pelos países. O setor privado se uniu junto com agora ali as nações, que são o bloco BRICS, vão usar, cara. Espero que tu tenha curtido o cafezinho. Eu sei que não falou muito do projeto, mas tu viu. Eles não vão falar explicitamente como é que é. Qual é o mecanismo. Mas eles dão pistas, cara. Eles já planejaram as leis cibernéticas pretendendo fazer a economia digital. Eles vão digitalizar tudo. Isso aqui é tua carteira. Põe na tua cabeça já. Teu celular é tua carteira. Tua vida tá aqui. Eu tenho quase tudo aqui, cara. Eu tenho, olha, na minha carteira pessoal, aquela tradicional que tu guarda dinheiro físico, eu só tenho a minha habilitação, cara. O resto eu tenho tudo aqui. Garanto que vocês também têm, né? Desde aplicativos de banco a documentos pessoais. Por isso que eu digo, tome cuidado, isso aqui é muito importante. Tá? Gurizada, foi um cafezinho, jogo rápido. Vou lá ter que dar atenção pro Davi. O Davi também tá com fome, acho que ele quer jantar. Espero que tu tenha curtido o cafezinho. Reforçando, deixa esse like, bora fortalecer a família do café, gurizada. Valeu, tamo junto, grande abraço, até o próximo.